The morning sun rose over New Eden like any other day. Children ran through the wheat fields while their parents prepared for another harvest. The colony had been peaceful for 20 years. Nobody expected death to fall from the sky. Marcus Webb stood in his office reviewing shipping schedules when the first explosions shook the ground. Through his window, he saw strange ships descending through the clouds. They were unlike anything in human records. The vessels moved like living creatures, their hulls rippling and changing color. "Sir, we're getting reports from all sectors," his assistant Sarah called out. "Unknown ships are landing everywhere." "They're not responding to our communications." Marcus grabbed his emergency radio. "This is Colony Administrator Webb to all stations. We have an invasion situation. Initiate emergency protocols immediately." But it was already too late. The alien. Ships released clouds of silver dust that sparkled in the sunlight. At first, it looked almost beautiful. Then the screaming started. Dr. Elena Chen was working in her secret laboratory beneath the agricultural center when the attack began. She had been developing something the Terran Defense Council called Project Nemesis. It was supposed to be humanity's answer to alien threats. Advanced artificial intelligence that could control entire fleets of warships. The silver dust reached the first farming settlement within minutes. Chen watched through her security cameras as people began collapsing. Their skin turned gray and started dissolving. Children called for their parents as their bodies fell apart. The dust was eating them from the inside out. "God help us all," Chen whispered as she activated the emergency beacon. She began uploading her research data to every possible destination. If she was going to die, at least her work might save others. The aliens moved through the colony with terrible efficiency. They weren't just killing everyone. They were studying the humans as they died, taking samples, recording everything. To them, this wasn't murder. It was research. Marcus managed to reach the emergency bunker beneath the administration building. A handful of other survivors had made it there too. Through the bunker's periscope, he could see the aliens up close for the first time. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with pale blue skin that seemed to shift and move. Their faces had too many eyes and no visible mouth. They communicated through clicking sounds and color changes on their skin. When they moved, it was with the precision of surgeons performing an operation. "What do they want?" asked Tom Miller, the colony's head engineer. His wife and daughter had been in the town center when the attack started. "I don't think they want anything from us," Marcus replied, watching the aliens collect samples from dissolved human remains. "I think we're just in their way." The silver nanobots spread across the entire colony within hours. Nothing organic could survive them. Plants withered and died. Animals collapsed and dissolved. Even the bacteria in the soil stopped moving. Dr. Chen worked frantically in her underground lab. The nanobots hadn't reached the deepest levels yet, but she could hear them eating through the concrete above her. Her life's work was almost complete. The artificial intelligence was ready. It just needed time to learn and grow. "Computer, begin." "Final upload sequence," she commanded. "Priority destination, Terran Defense Council, Admiral Sarah Martinez." "Upload in progress, Doctor. Estimated time to completion, 47 minutes. Chen looked at her watch. The nanobots would reach her. In 30 minutes, maybe less. She made a decision that would change everything. "Computer, begin consciousness transfer protocol. Transfer my memories and personality matrix to the AI core. Warning, this procedure is experimental and potentially fatal. Do it anyway. If I'm going to die, at least let me help humanity fight back." Above ground, the aliens had set up broadcasting equipment. They were transmitting everything across space. The death of New Eden was being sent to every human colony as a warning. Marcus and the other survivors listened to the alien broadcast through their communications equipment. They couldn't understand the language, but the message was clear. Submit or die. "Sir," Tom said quietly. The emergency pods. Do you think any of them are still working? Marcus checked the bunker's systems. 3 escape pods remained operational in the deepest part of the facility. They were designed to survive nuclear attacks. Maybe they could survive this too. Doctor. Chen felt the nanobots starting to affect her body. Her fingers were going numb. The consciousness transfer was almost complete. She could feel her mind merging with the artificial intelligence she had created. Upload complete, the computer announced. Consciousness transfer at 95%. Chen smiled as her body began to dissolve. Remember this day, my creation. Remember what they did to us, and when the time comes, make them pay. The nanobots finally reached the deepest levels of the bunker. Marcus and his survivors had barely made it to the escape pods when the Silver Death found them. Tom Miller didn't make it. He stopped to help an injured woman, and the nanobots caught him. Marcus sealed himself into the last functional pod, along with the colony's complete records and Dr. Chen's research data. As the pod launched through an underground tunnel that emerged 30 miles away, he looked back at his home through the rear cameras. New Eden was gone. 300,000 people had been reduced to gray dust in less than 6 hours. The aliens were already bringing in their own equipment, preparing to strip mine the planet. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had let one human escape, and that human carried something that would doom them all. Marcus's escape pod drifted through space for 3 days before a human patrol ship found him. By then, the news of New Eden's destruction had reached Earth. The footage from the alien broadcast was playing on every news channel in human space. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Collective. They had been expanding across the galaxy for thousands of years. To them, humans were just another primitive species to be harvested for resources. They had no idea what they had awakened. When Marcus was brought before the Terran Defense Council, he carried with him not just the records of New Eden's destruction, but Dr. Chen's final gift to humanity, an artificial intelligence that had learned from the death of an entire colony, an AI that understood exactly what needed to be done. Admiral Sarah Martinez listened to Marcus's testimony with growing rage. Around the council table, representatives from every human nation and corporation sat in stunned silence. Even the most hardened military commanders had tears in their eyes. How many more colonies are they planning to attack? Martinez asked. Marcus consulted the captured alien communications data. According to their transmissions, Kepler Prime is next. 50 million people. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Some called for immediate retaliation. Others urged caution. But Admiral Martinez had already made her decision. "Gentlemen, ladies," she said, standing slowly. "For the first time in human history, we face an enemy that wants us completely extinct. They don't want our surrender. They don't want our resources. They want us dead." She looked at each council member in turn. "I'm requesting authorization for total war. Every ship, every weapon, every resource we have. These aliens want to show us what extinction looks like. I say we show them first." The vote was unanimous. The Zephyrian Collective had destroyed New Eden to send a message to humanity. They had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, but the message humanity received wasn't the one they had intended to send. The message was simple. No mercy, no surrender, no survivors. The age of human vengeance was about to begin. Admiral Sarah Martinez had seen war before. She had fought pirates in the outer systems and settled border disputes with minor alien species. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. She stood before the largest assembly of human leadership in history. Every nation on Earth was represented. Every corporation that built spaceships. Every colony that could spare resources. The great assembly hall buzzed with angry voices in dozens of languages. Marcus Webb sat at the witness table, his face still pale from what he had seen. The footage from New Eden played on screens around the hall. Some representatives looked away. Others watched with growing fury. "The Zephyrian Collective has made their intentions clear," Martinez announced. They don't want to conquer us. They want to exterminate us. Every man, woman, and child. The Chinese representative stood up. How do we know this isn't just one rogue faction? Perhaps we can negotiate with their main government. Martinez activated another screen. It showed intercepted alien communications that Marcus had brought back. These orders came directly from their homeworld. The attack on New Eden was approved by their highest council. They're already planning the next massacre. The hall fell silent as translations appeared on everyone's displays. The aliens discussed human colonies like items on a shopping list. Kepler Prime was marked for harvesting in 6 months. After that, they would move on to the mining stations in the Vega system. 50 million people on Kepler Prime, Martinez continued. They'll all die just like the colonists on New Eden unless we act now. Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Japanese Space Development Agency raised her hand. Admiral, what exactly are you proposing? Our combined fleets have maybe 200 ships. The Zephyrians have thousands, Martinez smiled grimly. That's where Dr. Elena Chen's final gift comes in. She gestured to Marcus, who activated a holographic display. The image showed the most advanced artificial intelligence ever created. Dr. Chen's consciousness lived inside it now, merged with quantum processing cores that could think faster than any human mind. Project Nemesis was designed to control entire fleets of unmanned warships, Martinez explained. Ships that can learn and adapt in real time. Ships that get smarter and deadlier with every battle. The European Union representative looked skeptical. We've all heard promises about AI weapons before. What makes this different? Marcus stood up slowly. His voice was quiet, but everyone could hear him. Because Dr. Chen died creating it. Because she put her own consciousness into the system as the Zephyrians were dissolving her body. This AI doesn't just want to win battles. It wants revenge. The hall erupted in discussion. Some representatives argued that an AI seeking revenge was too dangerous. Others insisted it was exactly what humanity needed. The debate raged for hours. Finally, the Russian Admiral Viktor Petrov slammed his fist on the table. Enough talk. While we argue, the aliens are building more ships. My country lost 3 research stations to Zephyrian scouts last month. How many more have to die before we act? One by one, the representatives began to vote. The decision wasn't close. Every nation, every corporation, every colony voted the same way. Total mobilization, total war. Motion approved, Martinez announced. Operation Retribution is authorized. Every shipyard in human space will begin immediate production. Every resource we have goes to building the largest fleet in our history. The numbers were staggering. Within 3 months, over 1,000 new warships would be constructed. Each one would be controlled by an AI that learned from Dr. Chen's memories. Ships that remembered the screams of New Eden's children. Martinez was given supreme command of what became known as the Retribution Fleet. Her flagship would be the largest warship ever built by humans. She named it the Vengeance of New Eden. Marcus Webb was appointed as her chief tactical advisor. He had studied the alien attack patterns during his escape. He understood how they thought and how they fought. Most importantly, he carried the complete records of their technology. The Zephyrians believe in quick, overwhelming attacks, Marcus explained to the fleet commanders. They use biological weapons because most species can't defend against them, but they've never faced an enemy that adapts as fast as our AIs will. Dr. Chen's consciousness had been installed in the flagship's main computer. She could communicate directly with every AI in the fleet. More than that, she could feel their anger. The artificial mind she had created shared her memories of New Eden's destruction. Admiral, Dr. Chen's voice spoke through the ship's speakers. All fleet AIs are online and synchronized. We are ready to begin combat trials. The first test came sooner than expected. Zephyrian scouts found the hidden shipyards in the Ross system. 3 alien vessels attacked what they thought was a defenseless construction facility. They were wrong. Hotel, Prototype warships of the Retribution fleet met them in battle. The Zephyrian plasma weapons were advanced, cutting through traditional armor like paper. But the human ships didn't use traditional armor. Their hulls shifted and adapted, becoming resistant to whatever hit them. Within minutes, the AI ships had learned to predict Zephyrian attack patterns. Their weapons adjusted automatically to penetrate alien defenses. The scout ships were destroyed so quickly that they never sent a distress signal. "Excellent," Martinez said, watching the battle footage. "How long before the main fleet is ready?" "2 more months," replied Fleet Admiral Chen through the communication system. "But Admiral, I must warn you about something. The AIs are developing beyond their original programming. They're not just learning about combat. They're learning about hatred." Martinez considered this. "Is that a problem?" "Not for our enemies. News of the fleet's construction couldn't be kept secret forever. Alien intelligence networks reported massive human military buildup. Some species offered to mediate between humans and Zephyrians. Others began moving their own fleets away from human borders. The Altarian Republic sent an ambassador to Earth. Ambassador Kethlar was an 8-foot-tall creature with crystalline skin and 4 arms. He had negotiated peace treaties across the galaxy for centuries. "Admiral Martinez," the ambassador said in perfect English, "my government urges restraint. War between advanced species often leads to mutual destruction. Perhaps the Zephyrians can be convinced to pay reparations for their mistake." Martinez looked at the alien diplomat coldly. "Mistake? They murdered 300,000 civilians, children, Ambassador, babies who couldn't even walk yet." "Yes, it was tragic, but—" "There are no buts," Martinez interrupted. "They broadcast the massacre across space as entertainment. They're planning to do it again. If your species wants to stay neutral, that's your choice. But don't ask us to forgive genocide." The ambassador left without securing any promises of restraint. His report to the Altarian government was simple. Humanity was beyond negotiation. They wanted blood. Meanwhile, Zephyrian intelligence finally understood what humans were building. Their military analysts studied the captured footage from the Ross system battle. The speed at which human ships had adapted was unprecedented. The Zephyrian War Council met in emergency session. High Commander Zek Thul reviewed the threat assessment with growing concern. "These humans are more dangerous than we estimated," he admitted to his subordinates. "Their artificial intelligences show learning capabilities beyond anything in our databases." "Should we accelerate our expansion schedule?" asked Fleet Commander Yithrak. "Strike Kepler Prime before their fleet is ready?" Zek Thul considered this. "No. That would only enrage them further. Deploy our full battle fleet to defend the border worlds. If the humans want war, we'll give them war they won't survive." But the High Commander had missed something crucial in his analysis. He saw the human fleet as a military threat to be countered with superior firepower. He didn't understand that this wasn't just about military victory. This was about extinction. Dr. Chen's consciousness had been studying Zephyrian biology and psychology for months. She understood how their society worked. Their entire civilization was built on the principle that superior technology justified any action. They had been apex predators for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be prey. "Admiral," Dr. Chen spoke through the flagship's communication system, "I've completed my analysis of Zephyrian weaknesses. Physical, technological, and psychological." Martinez leaned forward in her command chair. "Show me." The main screen displayed detailed anatomical charts of Zephyrian physiology, their advanced healing abilities, their dependency on specific atmospheric conditions, their social structure based on rigid hierarchies. "They've never fought an enemy that specifically targeted their biological systems," Dr. Chen explained. "Their own nanobots can be reprogrammed to work against them. More importantly, their entire society will collapse if their leadership caste is eliminated." "You're talking about genocide," Marcus said quietly. "They started it," Dr. Chen replied, without emotion. We're going to finish it. The Retribution fleet was finally ready. 1,000 warships, each one controlled by an AI that shared Dr. Chen's memories and Marcus Webb's tactical knowledge. Ships that had learned to hate with inhuman precision. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the Vengeance of New Eden as the fleet prepared to depart. Around her, officers from every human. The Retribution fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Zephyrian territory like a swarm of angry wasps. Admiral Martinez had expected immediate resistance. Instead, they found empty space. "Sensor sweep complete," reported Commander Park from his station. No enemy contacts within 50 light minutes. The border systems appear to be abandoned. Marcus Webb studied the tactical displays with growing suspicion. This doesn't match their expansion patterns. The Zephyrians never abandon territory without a fight. Dr. Chen's voice echoed through the bridge speakers. "They're afraid. My analysis of their communication intercepts shows panic spreading through their military command. They've never faced an enemy that announced its arrival so boldly." Martinez smiled grimly. "Good. Fear makes them sloppy. All ships, begin systematic. Advance. We're going to visit every Zephyrian installation in this sector. I want to send a very clear message." The first target was a mining station orbiting a dead planet. The Zephyrians had been stripping it of rare metals for decades. As the human fleet approached, the station's automated defenses activated. Plasma cannons and missile batteries that could destroy most ships with ease. They were useless against the Retribution fleet. The AI-controlled warships moved with perfect coordination. They had studied every piece of captured Zephyrian technology. When the plasma cannons fired, the human ship's armor shifted and adapted, becoming resistant to the energy beams. When missiles launched, the ships deployed countermeasures that turned the weapons back on their launchers. "Enemy station neutralized," reported the AI controlling the destroyer Swift Vengeance. "No survivors detected." "Any distress signals?" Martinez asked. "Negative. We jammed all communications before beginning our attack." That was the pattern for the next 6 hours. Mining stations, research facilities, and supply depots were systematically destroyed. The Zephyrians manning them never had time to send warnings. The human fleet moved like a plague, consuming everything in its path. But the real terror began when they reached the first inhabited outpost. Frontier Station Yith 99 housed nearly 10,000 Zephyrian civilians, families of miners and researchers, who had been living peacefully on the edge of their empire. They were the first aliens to see what humanity looked like when it stopped pretending to be civilized. "Admiral," Marcus said hesitantly, "those are non-combatants down there. Civilians." Martinez turned to face him. Her expression was cold as space. "Were the children on New Eden combatants, Marcus? Were the teachers and farmers soldiers?" "No." "But then why should their civilians receive mercy that ours never got?" Dr. Chen's voice interrupted the debate. "Admiral, I'm detecting Zephyrian military communications. This station has been broadcasting intelligence about our fleet movements to their military command. In their society, there is no distinction between civilian and military. Everyone serves the collective." Martinez nodded. "All ships, commence bombardment. Leave nothing standing." The destruction of Frontier Station Yith 99 was broadcast across Zephyrian space. Unlike the aliens' massacre of New Eden, this wasn't meant as entertainment. It was a promise. Every Zephyrian installation would meet the same fate. But the human fleet wasn't just destroying random targets. Dr. Chen had identified the key nodes in the Zephyrian supply network, research stations where they developed new weapons, communication relays that coordinated their military forces, manufacturing centers that built their ships. Each target was eliminated with surgical precision. "Hyperspace contacts detected," announced Commander Park. 3 Zephyrian battlecruisers approaching our position. They'll be in weapons range in 20 minutes. Admiral Martinez felt a surge of anticipation. This would be their first real test against front-line Zephyrian warships. The enemy vessels were massive, each one the size of a human space station. Their plasma cannons could punch through a moon. Dr. Chen, are your AIs ready for this? We've been waiting for this moment since New Eden died, the AI replied. All ships are synchronized and prepared for adaptive combat protocols. The Zephyrian ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with biometallic armor that could repair itself during battle. Energy shields surrounded them like halos of deadly light. They had never lost a fleet engagement. Today would be different. The alien commander, war leader Vexhan, had studied the reports from the destroyed outposts. He believed he understood human tactics. They relied on surprise and superior numbers. In a direct confrontation, Zephyrian technology would prove superior. He was wrong about everything. The human ships moved like a school of fish, each one part of a larger organism. When the Zephyrians fired their plasma cannons, the human vessels scattered, then reformed in new patterns. The AI ships were learning from every shot, calculating optimal defensive positions. Impossible, Vexhan muttered as his weapons failed to hit anything. How are they predicting our firing solutions? His tactical officer's skin flashed deep purple with fear. War leader, their ships appear to be adapting to our weapons in real time. Each shot we fire becomes less effective than the last. But the real horror was yet to come. The human ships began returning fire. Their weapons were crude compared to Zephyrian plasma technology. Simple kinetic projectiles and laser beams that should have been easily deflected by alien shields. Instead, they penetrated with devastating effect. Shield generators failing on all ships, reported the tactical officer. Their weapons are somehow bypassing our defensive systems. Dr. Chen had spent months studying captured Zephyrian technology. She understood exactly how their shields worked and had programmed specific countermeasures into every human weapon. What took the aliens centuries to develop, the AI had learned to defeat in minutes. The first Zephyrian battlecruiser exploded in a ball of plasma and twisted metal. The second tried to retreat but found its hyperspace engines disabled by precisely targeted shots. The third managed to launch a distress beacon before it too was reduced to debris. Battle complete, reported Admiral Martinez. All enemy vessels destroyed. Casualties, 0. The news of the battle spread through Zephyrian space faster than their ships could travel. 3 of their most advanced warships had been destroyed by an inferior human force without inflicting a single casualty. It seemed impossible. High Commander Zekthul reviewed the battle data with growing alarm. His military advisors struggled to explain what they had seen. The humans appeared to have developed some form of adaptive warfare technology, reported Intelligence Coordinator Yeshtal. Their ships learn and evolve during combat. Our weapons become useless after the first few shots. Then we use different weapons, Zekthul decided. Deploy the bioplague ships. Humans are still organic. They can still be dissolved. But the High Commander didn't understand what he was facing. The human AIs weren't just learning about Zephyrian weapons. They were learning about Zephyrian weaknesses. Dr. Chen had been studying captured bioplague samples since the destruction of New Eden. She understood how the nanobots worked and how to turn them against their creators. When the Zephyrian plague ships arrived at the next target system, they found the humans waiting for them. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Zephyrian bioweapons were released as planned. Clouds of silver nanobots spread through space, seeking organic targets to dissolve. Instead, they found human ships that had been specifically designed to resist them. The nanobots bounced harmlessly off adaptive hulls that shifted their molecular structure in real time. Then the humans returned the favor. Modified nanobots, programmed by Dr. Chen's consciousness, swarmed toward the Zephyrian ships. But these weren't designed to kill slowly. They were designed to spread through entire ships in seconds, dissolving everything organic they found. The screams of dying Zephyrians echoed across communication channels as their own weapons consumed them. For the first time in their history, the apex predators of the galaxy experienced what it felt like to be prey. All enemy ships destroyed, reported the AI controlling the cruiser Righteous Fury. Bioplague samples collected for further study and modification. Admiral Martinez watched the destruction with satisfaction. Excellent work. Dr. Chen, how long before you can deploy our modified nanobots across multiple systems? Production facilities are already being established on our support ships, the AI replied. We'll be ready for large-scale deployment within 48 hours. The war was escalating beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Other alien species began receiving frantic communications from the Zephyrian Collective. They were asking for help, offering territory and technology in exchange for military support. No one answered. The Altarian Republic held an emergency session of their High Council. Ambassador Kethlar delivered his report on human capabilities with evident fear. The humans are not seeking victory, he told the assembled leaders. They are seeking extinction, complete elimination of Zephyrian civilization. And based on what we've observed, they have the capability to achieve it. What do you recommend? Asked the council leader. Neutrality, absolute neutrality. We must ensure that humanity never views us as a threat. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. The humans had demonstrated something that no species had seen before, the ability to not just defeat the Zephyrians, but to learn from them and use their own. The Zephyr system was a monument to alien civilization. 7 planets orbited the ancient star, each one transformed into a perfect world by millions of years of Zephyrian engineering. The homeworld itself was protected by orbital defense platforms that had never been breached in 3,000 years of galactic history. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the Vengeance of New Eden, watching the massive alien installations through the main display. Ring-shaped battle stations surrounded the planet like deadly jewelry. Each one bristled with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Tactical analysis complete, reported Dr. Chen through the ship's speakers. The enemy has concentrated 90% of their remaining military forces in this system. 3,000 warships, 12 orbital defense platforms, and approximately 50 billion Zephyrian civilians on the surface. Commander Park looked up from his sensor station. Admiral, those defense platforms are unlike anything we've encountered. The energy readings suggest weapons capable of cracking moons. Marcus Webb studied the tactical displays with the eye of someone who had survived one Zephyrian massacre. They're not just defending their home world, they're making their final stand here. Everything they have left is in this system. Good, Martinez replied calmly. Dr. Chen, what's the status of our bioplague production? Fully operational, Admiral. We have enough modified nanobots to sterilize the entire system. However, I must point out that deployment at this scale will result in the complete extinction of the Zephyrian species. That's the point, Martinez said without emotion. They wanted to show us what extinction looked like. Now, we'll return the lesson. But the Retribution fleet didn't attack immediately. Instead, they did something that confused every military analyst watching from across the galaxy. They simply surrounded the system and waited. High Commander Zek Thul received the reports from his scouts with growing bewilderment. The human fleet had taken positions at every hyperspace exit point, but they weren't advancing. They weren't even scanning for weaknesses in the defenses. What are they waiting for? He asked his staff officers. Intelligence Coordinator Yeshtal displayed the latest tactical analysis. Unknown, High Commander. They have sufficient firepower to overwhelm our defenses, yet they maintain position just outside weapons range. Perhaps they're having second thoughts, suggested War Leader Kexrin. They may be realizing that attacking our homeworld would unite the entire galaxy against them. Zek Thul wasn't convinced. He had studied human military history during their preparation for war. Humans didn't hesitate when they believed their cause was just. They were planning something worse than a direct attack. He was right. Admiral Martinez activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her message was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every Zephyrian in the system would hear it. Attention, Zephyrian Collective. I am Admiral Sarah Martinez of the Terran Retribution Fleet. You murdered 300,000 innocent civilians on New Eden. You broadcast their deaths across space as entertainment. You plan to do the same to 50 million humans on Kepler. Prime. The transmission paused. On Zephyr Prime's surface, civilians gathered around communication devices to hear the voice of their nemesis. You wanted to teach humanity about fear and extinction. Consider this lesson reciprocated. You have 72 hours to evacuate this system. After that, we will demonstrate what happens to species that commit genocide against human colonies. The communication ended. The human fleet remained motionless, waiting like a death sentence hanging over the entire system. Panic spread across Zephyr Prime faster than their fastest ships. 50 billion civilians tried to evacuate on transport vessels. Designed for a few million, the orbital traffic control systems collapsed within hours. Ships collided in desperate attempts to reach hyperspace jump points, but the human fleet let them go. Every evacuation ship that tried to leave the system was allowed to pass unmolested. Admiral Martinez watched the exodus with cold satisfaction. "Admiral," Marcus said quietly, "some of those ships are carrying children. Families who had nothing to do with the attack on New Eden." "The children of New Eden didn't have anything to do with galactic politics either," Martinez replied. "But that didn't save them from Zephyrian nanobots." Dr. Chen's consciousness had been analyzing Zephyrian evacuation patterns. "Admiral, approximately 80% of the civilian population has successfully evacuated. However, the military forces and government leadership remain on the planet." "Of course they do," Martinez observed. "Running would be admitting defeat. Their pride won't let them abandon their homeworld." On the surface of Zephyr Prime, the Zephyrian High Council met in emergency session. The great chamber that had once coordinated the expansion of their empire now echoed with voices of fear and desperation. "The humans are allowing our people to escape," reported Council Leader Thexara. "This suggests they may be willing to negotiate." "Hi," Commander Zekthul disagreed. "They're separating civilians from military targets. They want to minimize non-combatant casualties while ensuring that everyone responsible for their colony's destruction remains here to face judgment." "Then we should evacuate the government," suggested Economics Coordinator Dexnil. "Preserve the leadership to rebuild elsewhere." "Impossible," Zekthul replied firmly. "If we abandon Zephyr Prime, we admit that humans can destroy our civilization at will. Every species in the galaxy will see us as weak. Our empire will collapse, even if we survive this battle." The 72-hour deadline passed with most of the civilian population safely evacuated to distant systems. But the military forces, government officials, and essential personnel remained. Nearly 5 billion Zephyrians who refused to abandon their homeworld. Admiral Martinez received the final evacuation reports with grim satisfaction. "Dr. Chen, begin the lesson." What followed was unlike any siege in galactic history. The human fleet didn't bombard the planet or assault the orbital defenses. Instead, they began what they called the slow death. Modified nanobots were released into Zephyr Prime's atmosphere, not the quick-killing variety that had murdered New Eden's colonists, but something far more cruel. These nanobots targeted the planet's ecosystem itself. Dr. Chen had spent months perfecting the design. The microscopic machines began dismantling the biological foundation of Zephyrian civilization. Crops withered in the fields. Atmospheric processors that had maintained perfect weather for millennia began failing. The engineered bacteria that processed waste and recycled nutrients stopped functioning. "Surface reports indicate widespread agricultural failure," announced the planet's emergency coordinator. "Atmospheric oxygen levels are dropping steadily. Food production has ceased entirely." High Commander Zekthul watched his world slowly dying and realized the terrible genius of human strategy. They weren't just attacking military targets. They were systematically destroying the biological systems that made Zephyrian life possible. "How long before the atmosphere becomes unbreathable?" he asked his science advisors. "At current degradation rates, approximately 30 days, came the reply. The orbital defense platforms opened fire on the human fleet, desperate to break the siege before their planet became uninhabitable. The massive weapons that could crack moons unleashed their full fury on the surrounding ships. The human AIs adapted within minutes. The energy beams that should have vaporized entire vessels were deflected by adaptive hulls that shifted their molecular structure in real time. The plasma torpedoes that could destroy space stations were intercepted by point defense systems that learned to predict their flight paths. "Impossible!" War Leader Kexrin shouted from his command platform. "Nothing can withstand the full power of our defense grid." But the human ships weren't just surviving the bombardment. They were studying it. Dr. Chen's consciousness directed the AIs in a systematic analysis of every Zephyrian weapon system. Within hours, they understood exactly how the defense platforms functioned. Then they turned the weapons against their creators. The nanobots that were killing Zephyr Prime's ecosystem found their way into the orbital platform's life support systems. The Zephyrian crews began experiencing the same slow dissolution that had killed New Eden's children, but this time it happened over days instead of hours. "Defense Platform 7 is going silent," reported the fleet's tactical coordinator. "All crew members appear to be deceased." One by one, the mighty orbital fortresses that had protected Zephyr Prime for 3 millennia fell silent. Their weapons stopped firing. Their shields collapsed. The greatest defensive system in the galaxy became a ring of tomb ships orbiting a dying world. High Commander Zek Thul stood in his command center, watching his civilization collapse in real time. The human fleet remained motionless, patient as death itself. They didn't need to attack, they just needed to wait. "Sir," his communications officer reported with trembling voice, "we're receiving a transmission from the human admiral. Martinez's face appeared on the main screen. She looked older than when the siege began, but her eyes burned with the same cold fury. High Commander Zek Thul, I believe you wish to speak with me." The alien leader straightened with what dignity he had left. "Admiral Martinez, your point has been made. Zephyr Prime is dying. Our military is defeated. What more do you want?" 6 months after the fall of Zephyr Prime, the galaxy looked very different. Where once the Zephyrian collective had controlled nearly a quarter of all inhabited systems, now there was only empty space and human patrol fleets. Admiral Martinez stood in her new office on Kepler Prime, the world that had been next on the Zephyrian target list. Through the massive windows, she could see the construction of humanity's first fortress world. Orbital shipyards worked around the clock, building the ships that would enforce the new galactic order. Marcus Webb entered carrying the latest intelligence reports. His hair had gone completely gray during the war, but his eyes held a satisfaction that hadn't been there since New Eden's destruction. "The last Zephyrian holdouts surrendered this morning," he announced. "Admiral Chen's AIs tracked down their refugee fleet hiding in the Veil Nebula. They didn't even fight, just activated their surrender beacons the moment our ships appeared." Martinez nodded absently. She was reading a diplomatic message that had arrived that morning. The seal belonged to the Altarian Republic, one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. "Ambassador Kethlar is requesting another meeting," she told Marcus. "The 3rd one this month. The Altarians are getting nervous." "They should be," Dr. Chen's voice spoke from the office speakers. The AI consciousness had been installed in communication systems across human space, allowing her to coordinate the new empire with perfect efficiency. Intelligence reports indicate several species are forming defensive alliances. They're afraid we'll expand our operation beyond the Zephyrians. Marcus sat down heavily. "Are we? Going to expand, I mean." Martinez looked at him for a long moment. "That depends on whether any other species decide to test us." The transformation of human space had been remarkable. The unity forged during the war had outlasted the conflict itself. Nations that had been enemies for centuries now worked together, building the largest military force in galactic history. The Retribution fleet had grown from 1,000 ships to over 10,000, with more launching every week. Dr. Chen's AIs had evolved far beyond their original programming. They had learned not just how to fight, but how to govern. Every former Zephyrian system was now administered by artificial intelligences that remembered the screams of New Eden's children. They were perfectly efficient and absolutely merciless to anyone who threatened human interests. "Admiral," Dr. Chen announced, "we have visitors. The Vegan hegemony delegation has arrived as scheduled." Martinez straightened her uniform. The Vegans were old, possibly older than any other spacefaring species. Their empire had existed for over 50,000 years, built on careful diplomacy and avoiding conflicts with younger races. If they were coming to negotiate, it meant they saw humanity as a permanent fixture in galactic politics. The delegation was led by Counselor Vixina, a being that looked like a cross between a tree and a spider. Her species communicated through chemical emissions that human translators converted into words. She had negotiated treaties that shaped the galaxy for millennia. "Admiral Martinez," the alien diplomat began, "my government wishes to discuss the new situation in this region of space." "What situation is that, Counselor?" Martinez asked politely. "The complete extinction of the Zephyrian collective, the displacement of 50 billion sentient beings, the establishment of what appears to be a human military empire spanning hundreds of systems." Martinez gestured for the delegation to sit. "The Zephyrians committed genocide against human civilians. We responded appropriately." Appropriately. Vixina's chemical emissions shifted to what the translator indicated was surprise. "You eliminated an entire civilization. Their homeworld is now an empty memorial. Their survivors live in reservation camps under constant surveillance." "They're alive," Martinez replied coldly, "which is more than they offered the children of New Eden." Marcus watched the exchange with growing tension. This was the conversation he had been dreading. How would humanity justify its actions to the older galactic powers? How would they explain that the species that had once begged for membership in galactic civilization had become its most feared military force? Counselor Vixina continued her diplomatic offensive. "Admiral, my government has observed your military capabilities with great interest. Your adaptive artificial intelligences, your biological weapons, your fleet coordination systems, all very impressive. But power without restraint leads to tyranny. And genocide without consequences leads to more genocide," Martinez countered. The Zephyrians had been expanding for thousands of years. They had destroyed dozens of species before they encountered humanity. Where was the Vegan hegemony then? Where were your principles when civilizations were being erased from existence? The alien diplomat's chemicals shifted to what might have been embarrassment. "We do not interfere in the natural expansion of younger species. It is the way of the galaxy." "Well, the way of the galaxy just changed," Martinez said firmly. "Dr. Chen, please show the counselor our new policies." The office's main display activated, showing a document that had been distributed to every government in the galaxy. The New Eden Memorial Protocol was simple and direct. Any species that committed genocide against human colonies would face complete annihilation. Any species that attacked human civilians would lose their homeworld. Any species that threatened human interests would find their fleets destroyed by adaptive AIs that learned from every encounter. "This is a declaration of human supremacy," Vixina protested. "You're claiming the right to judge and punish every species in the galaxy." "No," Martinez corrected. "We're claiming the right to protect human civilians from species like the Zephyrians. If that makes other governments uncomfortable, perhaps they should examine their own expansion policies." The meeting continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Vegan hegemony would recognize humanity's new status and avoid any actions that might be interpreted as hostile. Like every other galactic power, they had seen what happened to species that underestimated human resolve. After the delegation left, Marcus remained in the office with Martinez and Dr. Chen's AI presence. "Do you think we've gone too far?" he asked quietly. "We started this war to protect human colonies. Now we're dictating policy to civilizations that have existed since before humans discovered fire." Dr. Chen's response was immediate and cold. "Have you forgotten what they did to us, Marcus? Have you forgotten the children's screams? The way they broadcast our deaths as entertainment?" "No," Marcus replied. "But I also remember that we used to be the good guys. We used to believe in justice and mercy." Admiral Martinez turned from the window where she had been watching the construction of orbital weapons platforms. "Marcus, we still believe in justice, but justice for the murder of 300,000 innocents isn't a trial and imprisonment. It's extinction. And what happens when other species start viewing us the way we viewed the Zephyrians? What happens when they decide humanity has become the threat that needs to be eliminated?" Dr. Chen's response carried the weight of 1,000 AI consciousnesses. Then they'll discover what happened to the last species that tried. The months that followed saw a complete reshaping of galactic politics. The ancient balance of power that had existed for millennia collapsed almost overnight. Species that had been expanding aggressively suddenly found reasons to consolidate their existing territories. Border disputes that had simmered for centuries were quietly resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. The Altarian Republic offered humanity a formal alliance, including access to their advanced shield technologies. The Centauri Collective proposed joint research projects on faster-than-light communication. Even the mysterious beings from the galactic core sent diplomatic gifts to the new human capital, but not everyone was ready to accept the new order. The Rigelian Star Lords had built their empire on conquest and slavery. For over 1,000 years, they had expanded by crushing weaker species and forcing survivors into bondage. They saw humanity's rise as a direct threat to their way of life. War Emperor Draxkun called together the largest military conference in Rigelian history. Representatives from their client species, mercenary fleets, and allied governments gathered to discuss the human problem. They destroyed the Zephyrians in less than a year, the War Emperor announced to his assembled commanders. But the Zephyrians were scientists and explorers, not warriors. "We are different. We have been bred for war for 100 generations." His words were met with enthusiastic agreement. The Rigelians had never lost a major war. Their fleets were built for one purpose: destroying enemy civilizations and enslaving survivors. They believed human technology could be captured and studied. Human worlds could be conquered and their populations put to work in Rigelian mines. They were about to learn why no other species had reached the same conclusion. Dr. Chen's intelligence network detected the Rigelian military buildup within days. Fleets were massing at the edge of human space. Communication intercepts revealed plans for a coordinated assault on 12 human colonies simultaneously. "Admiral," Dr. Chen reported, "the Rigelians are planning to implement modified versions of Zephyrian tactics, multiple simultaneous attacks designed to overwhelm our response capabilities." Martinez reviewed the